carp away at it, the better off he's going to be, I think.
And Carney never said he was getting rid of the carbon tax entirely. He said he was pausing it, right? He never said he was getting rid of it. He never put in legislation to get rid of it. He just said he was pausing it, and he paused it for the election. And I think he did that as a political, right? Take that power away from the Conservative Party, because that's what the Conservative Party talked all about. Am I wrong, though?
No, you're entirely right. And Royce said it best, the effect. It's not just about policy. The effect is on people. Costs that will go up for people. And who's hit hardest? The working poor and poor people. That's what they're hardest by these failed policies over and over again. Now, this isn't, again, it's not new, what Mr. Carney's done, but the entire concept of the industrial tax is wrong because it's a hidden tax that still boosts all prices. And now this on top, adding 17 cents a liter for gas. Once again, who's affected? The working poor and the poor, much more than the wealthy. And it's really, I don't want to say it over. I don't want to say it over again. I want Canada to be successful, but you've got to point out these failed policies, and hopefully Canadians at some point will get their heads a shake and say, I know he's got a really nice CV, but my God, you have to have facts on the ground. You have to have working projects on the ground, and that's what's.
Well, and I think, a lot of people, sorry, Bryce, I just think a lot of people are missing the fact that there's a huge ripple effect when you increase gas. It's not just 17 cents on gas. That will, in essence, raise prices almost everything, because everything has to be transported.
Yeah, it's the tax on everything. And when the party got rid of the carbon tax, Pierre Poilievre, the Conservative MPs, basically made this point of we could see this come back in different form. He was leaving the door open. People dismissed him, so that he's just conspiratorial. Now we're actually seeing something like that happen. Lawrence is saying that I wonder when Canadians are going to get past their credentials when it comes to Mark Carney. We're already seeing that. There was an Abacus poll published this week that shows that for the first time since the election, the Conservatives are actually more popular than the Liberals. Mark Carney's honeymoon lasted for a total of 4 months. And as economic conditions get worse, we expect those numbers are going to continue to go down.
Yeah, it's what I said before. I mean, I don't think Royce wants this. I don't think you want it, Kevin, and I don't want it either. We want Canada to succeed. We want Canadians to succeed. But I hope you're right, Royce. I hope that Canadians are beginning to understand that these are policies and problems made in Canada that are causing these problems. It doesn't have to be this way. And that's the issue. So I hope Canadians will wake up and are waking up. That's what's critical because it affects us on so many fronts. So I really hope that we do wake up to that. Certainly we're trying to.
Well, I think my biggest fear with all this is that as Canadians hopefully do wake up, Carney has a good amount of time. He has almost a majority government. The NDP are in no position to follow an election. I know Weiss and others have talked before that the NDP don't want to do what they did last time. They caught propping up the party, but look, they don't have a good leader. They don't have a leader period right now. They don't have money for an election. They're not going to call an election anytime soon, and they're certainly not going to take the government down. So my fear is how much damage can be done. The 17 cents a liter is going to cause a lot of damage. I was shocked when I was at the store the other day, and we were looking at having steaks. It was a nice summer night. We wanted to have some steaks. And I thought, I'm going to have to go to the bank first and get a loan. 3 steaks were $98. I was shocked. I thought, well, how can people afford to eat this? And now that is going to go up even more under Carney. And I think my fear really is, will Canadians learn? Because I think this government's going to do exactly what the Trudeau government did and make people more reliant on the government checks for help or whatever. But this is leading the country. We have to stop that.
Kevin, it sounds like the guy. Kevin, it sounds like you read Mr. Carney's book because that's essentially what he's talking about. Is again a government that You want choice in car? I don't think so. You might not even have a car. You want choice in your economic future for yourself and your children? I don't think so. He knows better. That's what his book is about. The control by the elites over the people of Canada, a very rarefied elite. I mean, I'm sitting here as a lawyer, and I'm saying this is atrocious. His book was atrocious, and frightening as can be, and that's what he actually is putting in place. And you mentioned the NDP. When you look at the people who are running for leadership in the NDP, top up in the government, it's actually worse. Their liberals are way left of center, and it is very, very concerning. The upside, of course, is that maybe Pierre Poilievre back in Parliament, maybe that can get things going in the right direction. And when you think, frankly, of course, we have the CBC covering Parliament, and so many Canadians get the news from the CBC, bought and paid for. What is it, $1.5 billion that they get?
Yeah, I would say it's propaganda.
That's exactly the point. And a lot of people are getting their information from there still, which is an enormous problem. The bias that goes on is unforgivable.
Well, and I did write a column about Carney's book as the election was going on. I recall I was saying I hadn't read it yet. Then I saw on Twitter that you did read the books.
I did. I think I kind of gave it the skin read, the classic academic skin read. My view is just simply the liberal politicians are chameleons. So the book is kind of an artifact of history. It's what he believed, but he'll be sure to replace his beliefs as long as it's politically expedient to do so. It's really concerning. You know, for a very long time, the Liberals were unpopular. Suddenly they were popular as soon as Mark Carney became the leader. They instantly called an election, ran a campaign that was vague on promises. As you might recall, Mark Carney took several holidays during the election campaign. Well, not holidays, he
Hey, you see that? That's our first international arrest in Canada. Oh, you see that? That's our arrest in our 42nd state, Delaware. YouTube's censoring channels like this left and right. If you want to keep this movement alive, send one vocals in the comment. You can see all of these uncensored, no filter, for only $7 a month. And you can keep this movement alive and spite big tech. Choice is yours. You can support the group that has an arrest in 42 different states in 2 countries. You can see catches like the fire lieutenant, which I can't post publicly until after his trial. You can see all of Steakhouse content that I think is too spicy for here, plus much, much more. Contribute directly to getting these people off the streets. Keep yourself entertained, keep us going, join locals, pin comment. What's up, guys? Before this video starts, be sure to follow us on all platforms, including on Rumble, which you can find in the pinned comment. This platform has been giving a lot of people, I guess, a lot of problems lately, and Rumble is a lot more receptive to free speech and whatnot. So be sure to follow us on Rumble. Any video on here you can also find on Rumble, and if you're looking for a video and can't find it on here, it'll be on our Rumble. So be sure to follow us on Rumble in the pinned comment. Like the video. What's up, guys? A lot of you guys may know about the Gordon Flowers hoodie. However, we also have a fried pickles hoodie, as you can see right here, and Gordon Flowers sweatshirts that you can get in many, many different colors. Show your support for the Gordon Flowers movement and the PP movement by getting one of these. I can tell you, they are very, very comfortable. Like, in all seriousness, they are, and I actually do wear them. So be sure to get one of these and enjoy the video. This channel is a group of investigative journalists who make educational documentaries showcasing an educated society, especially parents and legal guardians, about potential scenarios that result from young people and adults conversating online if left unchecked. We conduct thorough interviews with consenting adults in an attempt to understand their perspective on why they partake in these conversations online with people that are not of age. The goal of the interviews in these videos and the videos themselves is to gain an understanding of the perspective of the individual being interviewed, so parents and the rest of society to be educated and aware of potential thought processes and desires of adults online to unsupervised persons not of age. These videos are not to cyberbully, harass, degrade, accuse, or threaten any individuals partaking in an interview process or in the video itself. We do not condone any of these actions. These videos are strictly educational, and we grant full permission for academia, which is any classroom setting or in scholarly papers, to show or cite our videos. To ensure that these videos are strictly used for educational purposes, we strictly adhere to YouTube's community guidelines, such as not revealing someone's personally identifiable information, in other words, PII. YouTube defines personally identifiable information as their home address, email addresses, signing credentials, phone numbers, passport number, medical records, or bank account information. We thoroughly look at and edit our videos to ensure that none of this information about any individual is shown in our videos. To ensure extra privacy for each person that is the subject of an interview in any of our videos, as of September 1st, 2022, to thoroughly comply with YouTube's harassment and bullying policy, there will be no mention or information about the last name or first name of any person interviewed in our videos. Due to potentially illegal activities discussed in our videos, law enforcement in the respective jurisdiction we conduct these interviews in is notified of each interview and video filmed by us. We are not accusing any individual interviewed of being guilty or committing a crime. That is the job of law enforcement. We are not vigilantes, and we do not condone vigilantism or vigilante behavior, such as taking the law into your own hand or not notifying law enforcement when suspected crime takes place. We are investigative journalists. Trigger warning. Some of what can be discussed in these videos can be sensitive to some, emotional, or stressful. The only goal of these videos is to educate the public. At the end of each video, as of September 1st, 2022, there will be an educational portion at the end to discuss what was talked about in the video and to discuss what people can take from that video and learn from and tell others about. Our goal here is to bring awareness and educate the public. Now the video will start. How's it going?
Hello.
Is there a Shane here?
That would be him.
Oh, how's it going? Oh, package for you.
Package?
Yeah.
That's unusual.
Go on, there's Gordon. Yeah, it's about Emily that I got to talk to you about. Oh, well, Emily on Facebook.
What's going on?
I'm just going to kind of talk to you about these messages here to her. That's cool. About if I... Where's the best place to have it? Say again? Oh, there was this girl I was messaging him on Facebook that, I mean, do you want to tell her? I mean, I just want to keep it between us. Are you Shane?
Yes.
Okay.
I don't know what's going on because I don't know.
What's the profile on Facebook?
Is it?
Can I see the profile picture?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's a hacked account.
Yeah, Shane, I just got to talk to you, man, about it.
What's the profile picture? I can
Right.
show you if he has access to it or not.
Well, Shane, the thing
No,
is...
I understand what you're doing, but is it? I'm telling you, it's hacked.
Yeah, no, I don't doubt it's been hacked before, but, you know, look, let's just be real, bro. Come on, let's just go outside and talk about it. You can know where it's hacked all you want. Let's just go outside and talk about it. I'm not here to get over with your relationship, bro. I'm here to get this addressed, be done.
Okay, is it with? I don't understand why it's going on. Like, is it with the young girl or something? Because I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't bring that up. You did, so come on.
I don't
Let's
know.
just-
That's my problem.
Yeah. Okay.
That's why I want to clarify.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, Shane, look. Is it cool if she just kind of stays out of it? Because...
I'm his wife.
That's why I'm
Okay.
concerned. Is it because of a little girl or something? Because I don't mess with that.
I'm not saying here, but this could be a one-off. You got carried away. I don't know. This is a girl who's 11 years old, okay? So, Shane, the reason I know that maybe you got carried away or drunk is because Mr. Hackerman couldn't have sent this. Okay, and it's right here.
Right here.
Mm-hmm, right here. So,
So it could also be my phone got hacked too.
Shane, we just want to talk about it, bro. Okay, it's not the end of the world, all right? It's not that big of a deal. It's just the internet shit. It's not like you've met anybody, okay? Just take a deep breath. I know it's hard to talk about, especially with her right here.
Oh, it's not that. I'm scared because I don't know who would do stuff like
We,
this.
I don't even know who you're talking about.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's his account, not, you know.
I know, he tells me about anybody he texts.
That's my
Well,
problem.
so obviously wouldn't tell you about this
I
one.
just want to see the profile picture for the profile.
Oh, well, this is the one with the dog, yeah.
Okay, and who's the girl that... So,
Well, it's Emily. Yeah, Shane, we know you have multiple Facebooks. I mean, that's not hard to find out.
right, but I only use one. That's my problem.
Well, I mean, Shane, the thing is, these messages weren't terrible. It's just I gotta just figure out why, because they were on the way to maybe not looking so good. But I mean, if we can nip it in the bud now, I mean,
I would like
You can
that.
block her right now.
Yeah.
Can you go ahead and block her?
Yeah.
Go get your phone.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, I'll go get it.
Okay. Can you show me that you block her?
Yeah, if you want to stay right there, 'cause that's...
I'm not gonna come in until you let me in.
I mean, I will log into there and just block her. So,
Delete the account, Jay.
and I'll delete that account. Just to let you know. If you want to see
Well,
it.
yeah, just show me that you block her real quick.
Okay. I don't understand what's going on, and I'm concerned. I mean, I do have access, but at the same time, I'm like,
Okay.
I don't understand why it's, you know. So you just see what's going on.
Go to Messenger. Blocking her in Messenger. Let me see. Let me see. Let me see.
See, I know I have multiple accounts. I keep track of those multiple accounts.
Okay. So Shane, you do have access to that.
Yes, but I don't understand why
Hit me.
it probably has been hacked. So I'm
All right. Well, look, man. I'm just gonna be real here. You kind of tripped over yourself, and you said you could block her right now.
Yeah.
But earlier you said you had no access to it. So,
I'm not there.
okay. All right. It's been a little bit since I message. Okay, but we still got to talk about what we said because it wasn't just peaches and cream. Okay. Is it cool if we come in?
That's why I was saying you.
That's why I still looks like you told someone we broke him. Yeah. 2018, the bikini pic star. What? Oh, was bikini.
Nice stuff. It was
Supported print.
I'm like, no, I need to stop.
Right. I think the even if like the old ass always. As our young people have a quarter-century high in their unemployment, Mark Carney brings in this year, he's expected to bring in a record number of temporary foreign workers to take the jobs of Canadian youth, driving down our kids' wages and their ability to earn a living. So while he drives up the cost of housing, preventing them from owning homes, he drives down their wages by allowing greedy multinational corporations to bring in low-wage foreign workers that take away Canadian jobs, including in high unemployment regions of this country. As our young people have a quarter-century high in their unemployment,
this is roughly $61,000 in silver. And this is 45 ounces of platinum. Same dollar amount, different stack sizes. That's platinum versus silver in real life. This is roughly $61,000 in silver. And this is 45 ounces of...
Alberta, Canada, is one step closer to breaking up with Canada. The province is seeing a tidal wave of pro-independence momentum, not fringe internet chatter, by the way, but a full-on political groundswell backed by voter support, legislative changes, and active referendum planning, of course, that will push into 2026 when that vote happens. And Premier Danielle Smith says she's never seen separatist sentiment this high. Thanks to a bill that was quietly passed this spring, Albertans could trigger a full-blown referendum on independence with just 177 signatures. A number of organizers say they're well on their way to reaching that goal. And what is Ottawa doing about it? Well, pretty much nothing, of course. Right now, Prime Minister Mark Carney just boarded another jet to Kiev. He's hanging out with Zelensky over there for, I think it's the third time this year now, ignoring all of the problems back home in Canada. Journalist David Creighton joins us from Ottawa. He's not leaving the roost. He's still in Canada, and he's fighting a good fight. Host of Creighton's Right on YouTube. He's a watchful eye, an independent voice up there in Canada. David, great to see you. Welcome back to the show.
Oh, it's nice to be back, and happy birthday, Natalie.
Thank you so much.
So I want to talk about this movement here, this Alberta movement first. There's a lot of stories I want to get to here, but in the minutes we have, it seems to be growing. And this isn't just like internet chatter anymore. There seems to be a real momentum behind this. And this idea that Alberta could become the 51st state of the United States of America, low taxes, not have to deal with all of the green energy weird policies that's hurting farmers in Alberta and everything else. So what do you make of the latest moves here on the Alberta Freedom Movement?
This has been largely engineered by the Alberta Prosperity Project, and they have done a fully comprehensive economic costing of what an independent Alberta would mean. And it looks extremely well for this potential independent province, or if it decides to become incorporated into the United States, I think Americans would welcome that, because this is an energy-rich province that contains most of the economic activity of Canada right now. Is this a serious referendum coming? Is this a serious movement towards independence? Absolutely. Polling suggests it's at least 50 to 55%. The momentum has not been stopped by the election of Mark Carney. If anything, it's been accelerated by the election of Mark Carney. And you can certainly see that this is no longer a fringe movement, because Albertans and Western Canadians have talked about separation, about independence for decades, ever since Pierre Trudeau was Prime Minister. This is the first time I have ever seen the numbers this high, the viability of independence to be this possible and this potentially real. And I've never seen the argument so strong. But I have to say, Alberta Premier Danielle Smith is doing everything she can to understand why Albertans continue to want independence. And she's holding a series of town hall meetings. But you know what? The questions that she's answering, in many cases, are fueling the anticipation or expectation of independence, because she was at a town hall this week and she was asked about equalization payments, or an indirect question about that. Of course, for those of you who don't know, that's when Ottawa extorts money from so-called have provinces to dispense it to so-called have-not provinces. And the federal government is extorting $25 billion a year from Alberta to give to other provinces, largely Quebec. So Quebec can then turn around and decide how it wants to spend Alberta's money, largely on social programs, because Quebec refuses to use the oil it's sitting on, unlike Alberta. So when she was furious about this at a town hall meeting, saying, why can't we lower taxes anymore in Alberta? Why can't we spend more money on the public school system? Because Ottawa is extorting $25 billion a year from the taxpayers of Alberta. And when she talks like this, of course, people are saying, well, why do we want to stay in Canada, where we have such a thing as equalization? Because it's not going to change under the Mark Carney Liberals or any foreseeable Liberal government. And of course the Conservative Party of Canada supports equalization as well, because
they want the votes in Ontario and Quebec, which are beneficiaries of equalization. So everything, the questions that are being asked, the problems that are being presented point towards the viability of an independent Alberta. And that's the situation right now. And whether it stays as an independent, autonomous province or whether it joins the United States, these are things that were at one time unthinkable. It just couldn't happen. But they are now entirely possible because of the breakdown in Canada as we used to know it and the authoritarian style of the Liberal government under, first of all, Justin Trudeau and now under Mark Carney.
Microplastics infiltrating every part of our lives. Scientists estimate we now consume a credit card's worth of plastic every single week. Disgusting. Through our food, water, even the air we breathe. One study found that plastic particles in 100% of human lung samples. Nobody is safe from this exposure. But even if you try to avoid packaged foods, you're still being exposed. But there's a way you can actually fight back, because your gut can actually help you fight back. Kimchi 1 from Bright Core Nutrition is a potent ally in this toxic world. It's packed with over 900 probiotic strains unique to kimchi, proven to break down BPA, helping you detox from the inside out. It doesn't just support digestion. It helps protect your cells, your brains, your hormones, and your future. Your body was never designed to handle plastic, but your gut was designed to protect you. You just have to give it the right tools. Right now, you can get 25% off with my code REDACTED at the link below, right there on your screen. If you go to mybrightcore.com/redacted, you can get 25% off. But the best part is that if you actually get on the phone and call 1-888-404-6312, you'll get 50% off and free shipping right now. That's right. So if you just call them, you'll get 50% off. If you're brave enough to get on the phone, and you remember the phones? Remember what those used to be? Actually have a conversation with a human being. They'll give you 50% off and free shipping. So go to mybrightcore.com/redacted or just call them 888-404-6312. That's the place to do it.
It feels like we've been tossed about in the laundry machine. You know, are we friends with Canada? Are we not? How do Canadians feel at this point, given that, you know, the tariff war has not been settled and we're just not sure from one day to the next what our relationship is? And so is there still an anti-American sentiment inside Canada, but by and large?
I would say that anti-American sentiment was always greatly exaggerated. But what's increasingly obvious is that Mark Carney lied about his intentions of dealing tough with Donald Trump. He knew he was not going to get tough with Donald Trump. And he knew, secondly, that retaliatory tariffs are bad news for Canadians. All they are is more taxes. And Canadians are amongst the most heavily taxed people in any democratic country. So Carney knew he wasn't going to do this. He was elected under false pretenses. He promised that he was going to get tough with Donald Trump and issue retaliatory tariffs, which he knew would not be good news for Canadians, for Canadian consumers. And he essentially last week admitted, hey, I made it all up, folks. I wasn't ever going to get tough with Donald Trump. We just love Donald Trump. We love the American people. We have the best free trade deal in the world. And I guess I kind of exaggerated things during the election, but hey, it was for the benefit of my winning this election. Everything Mark Carney does is for the benefit of enriching himself.
So is that also the case with his trip to Kiev, to Ukraine once again, to glad hand with Zelensky? What the hell is going on there while Canada is in real trouble, sending billions more to Ukraine?
Well, Mark Carney has spent $6.6 billion to Ukraine since becoming prime minister. And I think he's trying to catch up with Justin Trudeau in terms of his track record there. But once again, there's this bromance going on between Mark Carney and Zelensky, the same way Trudeau was just enamored with Zelensky, and it was apparently returned. But what's going on here is the question, Clayton and Natalie, is because here we have Mark Carney in Ukraine talking about being a guarantor of Ukrainian sovereignty, whatever that means. Now, does Canada suddenly think it has such a military presence that is going to stand up to whatever Russian demands are? Or secondly, Is he talking about some kind of peacekeeping force in Ukraine? You know, which a guest on your show last night said would basically be suicide, because the Russians are never going to allow NATO troops in Ukraine. It's not going to happen. Or is Mark Carney talking about some kind of war with Russia, the way that UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer has talked, or French President Emmanuel Macron? Both of them have talked about going to war with Russia as a guarantor of Ukrainian sovereignty. So his talk is increasingly alarmist. And it's once again, just like the Europeans are talking about war as a distraction from their economies, which are all in a catastrophic state. Mark Carney is using the Ukrainian distraction in the same way. So Canadians don't think about how bad the economy is right now and how near we are to economic catastrophe. Better have people think about some sort of war with Russia or peacekeeping in Ukraine, which of course is a delusion. It's never going to happen. But it's not that Mark Carney is a stupid man. He's a clever globalist who is edging Canada ever closer to Europe, even as he pretends to be very, very close to Donald Trump and very, very close to our American allies. And he is edging closer to a globalist relationship. That's what Mark Carney's always been about as the international banker. He has an agenda. He's working towards it. And at the same time he's working towards it, he's continuing to alienate small c conservatives in this country and most of all the province of Alberta.
Well, as Canada slips towards communism and its cozy relationship with the communist lifestyle, Canada is on the chopping block once again. David, great to see you here. Thank you so much for joining us. And coming up, we're actually going to talk about, we have another a good Canadian from the People's Party who's running for the People's Party, who was just fined $28,000 for just walking in the woods in Canada.
Yes. Yes.
Oh, yeah.
It's a good story.
Yeah, so we got a lot of Canada news on the show today.
It's incredible because I have talked about this, I've written about this for various publications, but it's incredible. We've come to this in Canada where you cannot go for a hike in the woods because somehow that's a fire hazard. And this is COVID pandemic number 2. It's nothing about safety. It's about control, government control over how we think, what we do, and where we even can walk now. And this is what Canada has become all about. So I'm sorry to go on again about that, but that's, you're going to have a great interview with this guy because this is a courageous man. Courageous man.
Yeah. Well, thank you for being courageous and keeping an eye on, the tyranny that is coming in Canada right now. David Creighton, always follow him on Creighton's Right. All the great work. I'm sorry we're out of time today because it's a busy show for you today. But David, thank you and great to see you as always.
Thank you again. Always a pleasure.
I'm joined now by Adam Klasfeld, the founder of All Rise News. Adam, we have some major breaking news here in the Federal Circuit Court of Appeals. Can you explain what just happened?
The Federal Circuit Court of Appeals, by a decisive 7-4 majority, agreed with the Court of International Trade that Trump's tariffs are illegal. These are the tariffs that he has labeled reciprocal tariffs and justified under the International Economic Emergency Powers Act of 1977. And we spoke about an earlier ruling in this case, and I predicted at the time that this court would affirm the lower court's ruling that the tariffs were illegal. They did so by a decisive majority today because that law that I just mentioned does not have the word tariffs. I'm going to repeat this again. The law that Trump used to justify his power to unilaterally impose tariffs doesn't say the word tariffs. It gives the President of the United States certain powers under emergency declarations to do certain things to the economy. No president before Donald Trump had ever tried to justify imposing tariffs unilaterally based on this law. That had always been Congress's purview.
So is there a way that they can go back to the court now and say, okay, well, he's not doing it based on this law, he's doing it based on another law?
You know, what I think is going to happen is, and that alliance have already been set for this, the Federal Circuit imposed a stay of their decision through mid-October, I believe October 14th, for the government to appeal to the Supreme Court. This will go to the Supreme Court. They will hear this ruling. I don't think that they're going to try to come up with another justification. They have argued, and it persuaded 4 of the 11 judges, that there is language in the statute related to the regulation of imports that they believe they can hang their hat on. It didn't work at the Court of Special Trade. It didn't work for most of the Federal Circuit in Canada. And I think that most of Wall Street is predicting it won't even work with this. This is too unprecedented a use of tariffs to find justification in a law that was never used for that purpose. Congress did not use these words. And as a matter of fact, in a concurring opinion, a long array of opinions in this 11-judge panel, a concurring opinion ends by quoting James Madison. It says, Congress alone has access to the pockets of its people. And that's what's at issue. Which branch of government has the power of the purse? We've always heard about it in our basic civics class.
Yeah.
And you have 2 courts decisively saying, no, the president cannot unilaterally impose import taxes, which is what tariffs are, based on this law that has not been used as way since its passage.
Well, this raises the question, if those tariffs were applied unconstitutionally, because Trump didn't have the authority to do so, and everybody paid more money for all of these imports, and builders paid more for their construction imports, if food importers paid more and then passed those costs on to the grocers, passed those costs on to the final consumers, is there any recourse, or is that just, I mean, there's no way to even figure out all of the millions and millions and billions of dollars that have been overcharged on American consumers by virtue of these tariffs. But is there any...
This case takes place in the UK and spans from 2003 to 2020.
Hey guys, welcome to the Liberal Hive Mind, a channel solely focused on exposing the abundant hypocrisy of the left. You know, they so badly just want you to shut up, they so badly don't want you to notice. But no matter how much they try to suppress us, we will never stop noticing the truth. Every single time the elites push their mass migration agenda, every time they lecture us about diversity being our strength, very quickly after, the reality of the scam that they are pushing becomes blatantly obvious. You know, they love to project this image of some utopian multicultural paradise. You know what I and many other perceptive people notice? You know what we see? We see the horrendous acts of violence. We see the knife attacks, the grooming gangs, the terrorist plots. We see the girls who are now terrified to walk the streets alone. You know, these woke Western leaders who have sold their souls to globalist ambition. They keep telling us it's all about compassion. Oh boy, do they love their woke feel-good buzzwords. But this is anything but compassion. This feels more like cultural seppuku. And frankly, the blood is on their hands. And not just in a metaphorical sense, but in a very real sense. Real blood
continues to be shed. Innocent blood is shed, just so these globalist puppet masters can engage in their little social and cultural experiments with us as the freaking guinea pigs, the lab rats. I got an absolutely wild CCTV video to show you guys from a public bus in Canada. We got some stuff to get into, so let's roll the tape. Alright friends, so there was a horrifying terrorist attack that just happened in Canada. I can show you guys the CCTV footage, and of course it's going to be heavily blurred. I'll describe it after we play it.
Security video captures both men standing near the rear exit doors and riding together in silence for about 3 minutes. Before Kawam pulls out a large knife and attacks, slashing at the victim's neck 3 times and intending to kill him, according to the admissions at trial. Before Kawam riding together in silence captures both men standing near the rear exit doors and riding together in silence for about 3 minutes. Before Kawam pulls out a large knife and attacks, slashing at the victim's neck 3 times and intending to kill him, according to the admissions at trial. As bus passengers scream, the victim uses his body to push Kawam out of the bus.
So here's the backstory. A man by the name of Abdul Aziz Kawam allegedly walked up to some random guy at a bus stop,
where he then asked that guy, "Are you a Muslim?" And when the answer came back as no, he tried to stab him. Now, fortunately, the individual just ran away and wasn't harmed. But then this completely crazed individual boards the bus, identifies somebody who I guess he perceived as white or just looking Christian, non-Muslim, and so you can see him kind of contemplating. Then he pulls a blade out of his pocket and starts slashing at the guy's face and throat. The dude was just leaning on a pole, holding a coffee in hand. No provocation, and boom, jihad. Do you feel culturally enriched yet? And now, of course, you might be thinking I'm jumping to conclusions based on the individual's name or visual identity, but no, trust me, I am not, because apparently after this incident, after the second failed stabbing, or I might as well update you guys on what happened here, the individual who was slashed had some pretty significant injuries, but he did in fact survive. But after the incident, the Islamic jihadist apparently called 911, where he basically admitted that he did it on behalf of the, quote, Islamic State. And he followed that up by saying, "I just did an attack in the bus." Then the 911 phone operator asked what happened. Kawam answered, "If you want the war to end, become a Muslim or pay the jizya, I'm not sure, to the Islamic State. Don't be a fool and hide this message from your people because this will hurt civilians." A straight up threat to civilian life.
Can you get the attack?
Yeah.
Where was the bus?
Where's the highway?
Okay, what happened?
You want work and become Muslim or pay the jizya to the Islamic State. Don't be fool and hide this message from your people because this will hurt civilians.
And you know what? Right away, before the left tries to dismiss this as just a freak, isolated case, I want to clearly identify that no, this is not some freak, isolated incident. We've noticed these kinds of crimes all across Europe. The explosion of young assaults on women, violent assaults happening in Sweden, France, Germany, UK, all of it, by the way, which is backed up by official stats from the government. We're talking anywhere from 200 to 700% increases in these attacks in just 2 decades. And in Sweden, they have a very unique phenomenon, massive issue with grenade attacks. And well, obviously, this is becoming a crisis. You know, they don't want you to talk about it. They'd say that if you identify any abnormalities in the stats and connect it to any particular group, that you are racist, you're a bigot. But obviously, that isn't the case, and they do that to defend their policies. They do that to distract from the damage that they are causing. It always ties back to the same failed immigration policies, the importation of mass military-aged men from cultures that do not share our values, that do not respect our way of life, and in many cases, they despise us. We're being lectured to by these bought and paid-for ideological cowards who are clearly too scared to tackle such an important pressing issue. Instead of addressing it, instead of fixing it, what are Western governments doing? They're criminalizing the
What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to The Fringe. We've spoken about immigration a lot on this channel. I've spoken a lot about Alberta independence and provinces needing to become independent. Part of the problem we're now facing is an invasion. We've talked about this before. Canada, whether you like it or not, folks, is being invaded. Our governments have left the doors open. We have asylum seekers pouring into this country. We have temporary foreign workers pouring into this country, demanding that they're allowed to stay because they've bought property or they just want to keep taking advantage of our system, be fast-tracked for citizenship, and all of it stems, folks, whether people want to face fact or not, because they're able to get on citizenship tracks very quickly in this country. And again, politicians like the votes. Keep in mind that when these folks come over to our countries, ladies and gentlemen, it's not... They don't know anything about our politics. They don't know anything about how our politics work, a liberal, conservative, anything. What they will vote for, who they will vote for, is whoever got them their citizenship the fastest, whoever allowed them into the country, or whoever they're told to vote for by those that they associate with. Independence needs to happen in provinces if they ever want to close their door and leave real opportunities for those in this country that have worked their butts off. Even landed migrants who actually want to contribute to our system, who want jobs, who want to pay their taxes, who want to live the Canadian dream. Opportunities are being squandered. In fact, I've seen message boards in and around where I live of people saying, I can't find a job anywhere because of DEI hires. Keep in mind that when these offices hire DEI, it's not because they feel good or they want to virtue signal that they're hiring people of a different ethnicity other than white. The reason they're doing it are the kickbacks that they get from the government. For example, a job like McDonald's that pays minimum wage, you'll see a lot of people from other countries will say, go and apply for jobs there, and if they're a DEI hire, well, McDonald's loves them because instead of paying them $15 an hour, they only have to pay them about 8 or 9, and the government subsidizes them for the rest. So the company gets to charge you, the consumer, top dollar for buying their product, they get to pay their employees less, and they get to cut the profits all the way to the bank. The government system is broken. Until that's fixed, to make hiring opportunities equal for Canadians, you're never going to see an end to the high cost of housing, the high cost of living, the high cost of food, utilities, etc. Even available land to build on. Take a look at this information coming from Table Salt. Really good account to follow. Major breaking: Canadian refugee backlog surged to all-time highs. 287,786 people are now waiting for a hearing. Also, almost 10,000 Indian nationals have claimed asylum so far in 2025. More than any other nation, India is a democracy. This is broken. So asylum usually is if you come from a war-torn country. If you come from somewhere that you'll possibly be sentenced to death if you go home or live in squalor, under persecution. In Canada, it's just, well, I couldn't get in the legal way, so I'm seeking asylum. I've crossed your borders illegally. I want to stay. You can see the statistics down here being offered by Table Salt. Back in the explain. You've got guys like the pleb down here saying reject every single application, a backlog problem.
Committing suicide by replacing its population.
Keep in mind, nobody can see a doctor.
Yeah, I agree. It is really messed up. Canada is basically committing suicide by replacing its population with people who aren't invested in preserving Western culture.
Coming up and saying it. Pierre Poilievre's on that track as well. Shout out to Pierre for...
So it's going to slowly descend into a third world nation. It already is, isn't it?
Said they would cap temporary foreign workers at 82,000 for all of 2025. Only halfway through the year, it's already 105,000, while our youth employment is at a 27-year low.
Yep, exactly. It's sad watching a country self-destruct like this.
Prime Minister Mark Carney is depriving a generation of young people of wages and jobs. He promised change. Instead, he's worse. Only conservatives.
Did you know they're also inviting in so many more temporary foreign workers? 82,000 in 2025.
Temporary foreign workers issued in the first 6 months. 105.
pays like $6
So if that was
an hour to these
210 by the end of the year, that's more
so
than double
youth
what the
Canadians, 18 to
projected
25, can't
target
get
was going.
jobs.
How does this benefit Canada? It benefits those coming here, but it just makes us poor. Pierre also goes on to tweet, new data just outshows
That's insane.
also on track.
So basically, they're importing cheap labor, which displaces young Canadians from entering the workforce. It's a double whammy of unemployment and cultural displacement.
Issued so far as of June 30th. So we're halfway through the year. We're already at 207,000. We're going to overshoot 395 by a landslide by the end of the year. Isn't this sad that this is where we are as a country? If anybody's saying, hey, Fringe, you're a racist, nobody really says that, but because people say it's facts. And it is facts. In fact, let's take a look at some more facts. One from good old Brian Gerritsen. I've shown this little video multiple times, but it's good for a refresher sometimes. When I say we're being invaded, this is exactly what I'm talking about. This is replacement migration. We've seen our trucking industry be overcome by this. We've seen our businesses overrun by this. Temporary part-time jobs for our youth, as Pierre says, overrun by those who want to take advantage of our system. I've shown videos on this channel of Indian migrants saying, go to Canada, you get all these benefits. They talk about $80-something thousand a year to sit around and do nothing, while the average Canadian makes $60,000 and has to pay taxes on it. I think it's way less than 60,000 a year, the average. But here's the total percent of the white population in 1970. Let's go through this one again. Return to Agency, you can see the entire country. That's where we'll see it. 1971. 93, 95, 94, 92, 96, 97, 99, 99, 99, 98.
StatCan recently released the labor force survey for July and reported a staggering loss of 41,000 jobs for the month, the largest single-month loss for 3 years, and significantly worse than what economists were expecting, raising the prospect of another rate cut from the Bank of Canada. This month's report was particularly bad for the youth demographic of 15 to 24-year-olds, which saw unemployment rise to 14.6%. That's right around where it was when I was in my early 20s, and I'll tell you from experience, that's not great. However, as usual, the headline numbers reported in the media don't tell the whole story. So, in this video, I'm going to discuss why this month's job report is probably not as bad as it sounds, but also why the jobs report over the last 3 years are much, much worse than the media has made them look. I'll also talk about how all of this ties into recent changes to immigration and the current political climate around immigration. So, if you've been watching me for a long time, you might have seen some of my old Friday update videos in the latter half of 2023, where I talked pretty frequently about the monthly labor force survey and how even though we were creating jobs, we were almost always adding more people to the labor force than we were adding jobs, so the overall effect on employment for the average person was actually negative because we were still adding more and more new unemployed people to the labor force. Now, on the flip side, what we saw this past month is sort of the opposite of what we've normally been seeing for the past few years. We lost 41,000 jobs, which is the largest one-month decrease in the past 3 years, but the size of the labor force also shrank by 33,000 people, which is the largest contraction of the labor force in the last 3 years. That means we ended up with 8,000 more unemployed people in the country, which is still bad, but by that measure, it's only the 20th worst month in the last 3 years, which actually makes it better than average. A good example of the overall trend I'm talking about is in November of 2024, when we added about 44,000 jobs to the economy, but we also added 108,000 people to the labor force, creating 64,000 more unemployed people, which actually pushed the unemployment rate up from 6.6% to 6.9%. If we look at the data from the last 3 years as a whole, we added 1.23 million new jobs, but we also increased the size of the labor force by 1.78 million, resulting in 550,000 more unemployed people in the country. In other words, the people who've been adding to the labor force are being added at an unemployment rate of about 31%, which is not great for the labor force as a whole. So coming back to this month's data, what would be causing a reduction in the size of the labor force? Well, it's only a single month, so it could be a statistical anomaly, but it could also be an early indicator of something that I've been expecting for a while, which could be that we're actually in net negative immigration right now. I know that's going to sound crazy to a lot of you, so let me explain. A couple of years ago, I was posting some stats about our non-permanent immigration programs, which are mainly the International Student Program, the International Mobility Program, and the Temporary Foreign Worker Program. These programs have been expanding since about 2002, when the government started loosening requirements for hiring foreign workers. This happened pretty consistently throughout the Harper administration, and foreign workers went from being a niche tool when no Canadian worker could be found to becoming heavily used by businesses like, say, fast food chains. This was actually considered such a big problem by 2014 that an upstart young MP named Justin Trudeau wrote an op-ed for the Toronto Star on how to fix the broken TFW program. Of course, he later went on to become Prime Minister and did the exact opposite of everything that he said in this column. The reason given for these changes was always that we needed to address labor shortages. In 2014, Garth White, the head of Restaurants Canada, went on CBC to discuss the issue of widespread use of foreign workers in fast food restaurants. When the interviewer asked why they didn't raise wages if they're so desperate for workers, he made the incredibly bold claim that even if they raised wages to $100 per hour, they would still need foreign workers. Keep in mind that when he said this, unemployment in Canada was 7.3%, which is slightly higher than it is today. Call me crazy, but I think if restaurants were offering $250,000 a year in today's money, they could probably find everyone they need. Now, I made a video a couple of years back laying out why I think labor shortages in Canada are a myth created by lobbyists, and the government is just using immigration programs to support a dysfunctional business culture that relies on cheap, exploitable labor, which ends up hurting both Canadian residents and the newcomers themselves. I got a lot of pushback at the time, but most of the public is starting to come around on the issue now that unemployment is rising and jobs are extremely difficult to find. However, the government still seems to be stuck in the same mindset, with both the Liberals and Conservatives continuing to claim we're facing a dire shortage of labor to this day. So, coming back to the actual numbers, the use of these programs was increasing steadily from the mid-2000s to the late 2010s, but in 2022, after inflation started spiking and businesses were looking for ways to cut costs, the use of these programs spiraled out of control. Stat Canada actually noticed the rapidly increasing non-permanent resident population back in 2019 and made a report predicting high, medium, and low population curves, which I recreated in this chart here, showing that we might see nearly 2 million non-permanent residents in the country by 2043. For comparison, here's what actually happened. We passed the 2 million mark in 2022 and the 3 million mark 2 years later in 2024. When this massive surge happened, the general public became much more aware of these temporary resident programs, and that's when politicians finally decided to start actually tightening the rules and reducing the amount of non-permanent residents flowing into the country. As I've said in previous videos, most of the consequential changes to immigration were actually made last year, including caps for student visas, tighter rules for hiring foreign workers, and reduced targets for permanent residents as well. Since these changes took effect, we have actually started to see results, and the net flow of non-permanent residents has actually been negative for the past 2 quarters, according to data from StatCan. We still have people arriving, but because these visas are temporary, there's a constant churn of people flowing into and out of the country, and now the number of temporary residents leaving exceeds the number coming in. I know a lot of people doubt that people are actually leaving, but StatCan does coordinate their data with the Canada Border Services Agency now, and their secondary data like rising vacancy rates and falling asking rents, as well as anecdotal information I've heard from people who often have international students or other temporary residents as customers. All of the information I've seen points to the fact that the number of people flowing into the country has fallen dramatically in the past year, and that the StatCan numbers are probably legitimate. Likewise, the numbers for total net immigration have fallen rapidly as well. The most recent quarterly data for the first 3 months of this year is still positive at 25,000 people, but that's down from a peak of more than 400,000 in Q3 of 2023. So based on all of this, my suspicion is that when the data for Q2 is published, which is for April to June, we'll probably see net negative immigration overall, meaning that we've been seeing a net outflow for several months already. Now again, a lot of people will probably doubt me on this, because if you look around your neighborhood, you'll probably still see that the number of international students or other temporary workers is still pretty high. But if you took calculus in high school, you might remember that a zero of a derivative of a function corresponds to a local maxima or minima of that function. In simple terms, the point where we switch from positive to negative immigration rates is also the point where we'll see the highest population of immigrants present in the country, because up until that point we were still adding more people. The change won't really be noticeable until we've been in negative immigration for a while. In my opinion, undoing the developments of the last few years is going to be key to normalizing our labor market, because using temporary residents to fill all kinds of local labor needs is unsustainable and a pretty serious form of exploitation. Many businesses, however, have become so heavily reliant on these programs that a group of companies in Quebec is actually attempting to sue the government for $300 million over the reduction in access to foreign workers, claiming that they'll go bankrupt if they have to hire people within Canada instead. So basically, I think we are currently in net negative immigration, and that's going to be a significant thing to watch in the labor market reports going forward. However, I want to also mention something on the political side, which is that Pierre Poilievre has just recently started calling for net negative immigration, but if I'm right, we've already been in net negative immigration for months. This is very interesting to me because in my previous videos on immigration, I've always tried to stress that although they try to present themselves as being opposed to each other on immigration, the Conservatives and Liberals have basically always been in total agreement. Now, I'm going to give some more examples here, but keep in mind that I do this not to excuse anything that the Liberals have done, but just to emphasize that it's important to pay attention to what politicians are doing while they're doing it, and what they're saying while it's happening, instead of just listening to what they say after everything blows up in their faces. Poilievre did an interview with the Hub Canada back in June where they discussed some of these issues and actually got into policy details. One thing that Poilievre highlighted was the Liberals removing something called the 6% rule, where the government refused to process low-wage TFW applications for places where local unemployment was higher than 6%, since it should be easy to find a local worker to fill those jobs if there's enough people looking for work. Here's what he had to say about that decision.
I'll give you an example of something that I can't imagine why anyone wouldn't be sitting around and consulting that this was a good idea. The Harper government was responsible for a policy that if you have higher than 6% unemployment in your locality, you can't have temporary foreign workers for hotels, accommodations, and restaurants. Retail restaurants. Because the idea is if you've got unemployed people, they should be getting those jobs first. The Liberals got rid of that, so that even in places where you had high local unemployment, employers could go around the locals and hire a lower wage temporary foreign worker. Like, what could possibly be the rationale for that? That's not like a, oops, you can see what they were thinking, but it didn't turn out the way they thought. It's like, why would you do that?
Now, I absolutely agree with everything he just said. If you're hiring for a job without highly specialized skills and there's high local unemployment, you can't logically claim that there's a labor shortage for that position. It doesn't make any sense to lift that rule. But you know who did support lifting it at the time? The Conservative Party. In committee, Conservative MP Stephanie Coussy specifically said that the changes that the Liberals had made, including removing the 6% rule, increasing the time the labour market impact assessments were valid for, and lifting seasonal caps on workers, were commendable moves and that they supported them. The thing the Liberals needed to work harder on, she said, was speeding up approvals and clearing the backlog to get more people into the country faster to address the labour shortage. Also in the Hub interview, Poilievre went on to criticize the way that the international student program became basically a backdoor work permit for people enrolled in college programs.
The international student program, like, they were letting people in who clearly were not studying. They weren't even, if they were going to an educational place at all, it was for a few hours a week. No evidence that they were studying. And they're working 40 hours a week. How could that be a good idea?
However, when the Liberals were eliminating the cap on off-campus work hours for international students, supposedly to help address the labour shortage, even though unemployment had already been rising for months at that point, Poilievre's immigration critic, Jasraj Singhalan, said that the Conservatives had been calling for this move to be made earlier that same year and described it as common sense. He went on to say, "Today's announcement by no means will solve Canada's labour shortage crisis. The government needs to clear the Liberal-made backlog, let newcomers contribute to Canada's economy, and get the affordability crisis under control." In other words, a good move, but you need to get immigration going faster. This isn't recent either, it's been going on for decades. The shift to supporting a reduction in immigration from both parties only happened after public sentiment change, and in fact, both parties shifted their messaging on the same day, January 22nd, 2024, when the Liberals announced that they were bringing in caps on student visas. Poilievre was asked if he would put a cap on international students if he became Prime Minister, and he gave a very straightforward yes, as though it was the most obvious thing in the world. But just 10 days earlier, he declined to answer the same question. Poilievre is absolutely right when he says the Liberals made a bunch of bad policy decisions on immigration that has led to a lot of problems, but the Conservatives supported them every step of the way, with their only criticism being that they should have been even more aggressive in ramping up immigration to solve the labour shortage. I think a lot of people are operating under the assumption that the Conservatives would have reined things in because immigration was lower 10 years ago, but I honestly haven't been able to find anything in Parliament or any other public statements suggesting that they would have done anything differently. They're both apparently listening to the same lobbyists, constantly telling them that we're critically short on workers and need to keep bringing more and more people into the country to keep businesses running. If we just leave politicians to their own devices and vote based on what they're pretending they would have done, they're going to keep screwing up and blaming each other while we deal with the consequences. I think the only solution is to keep our eye on the ball and start demanding solutions early to put pressure on them to prevent problems instead of constantly dealing with crisis after crisis. So to wrap up, I guess the main message of this video is that you should actually watch politicians to see what they're doing, instead of listening to what they say after the fact. It's also good to keep in mind that the job reports you're going to see coming out in the next several months may not tell the whole story, and you'll need to look deeper into the data to see what's going on. And of course, make sure to like this video and subscribe to Millennial Moron to keep getting your news 2 years in advance. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.
I really like it down here. I live literally right by the World Trade Center. I walk home. I live above it, actually. My ankle bracelet. Tells the government where I am every second of the day, any time of the day. But it's gonna come off when I go to prison, I think. And I don't think I'm wearing this in prison, so.
That's what the plan is for that.
Closing numbers on the markets today. At one point, the market fell as if down a well.
It was an historic day with Wall Street shaken to its very foundation. And even the health of the most trusted firms are now being called into question.
We have former secretaries of Treasury who go from government to Wall Street pocketing hundreds of millions of dollars.
In 2008, I became somewhat obsessed with the role that money itself played in the crisis and the role that governments and banks played in money. And why was it that our money was controlled by central banks?
If something new happens, is the government likely to give it a nod or at least ignore it for a while? Or is the government likely to come down and try to crush it because they're afraid of anything new or different?
This is a monetary revolution. Bitcoin is the honest currency.
Hey, this past week we've been talking about money. I'm going to ask everybody what you think money is. Can you give me some answers now?
Money is like paper, and you can like buy stuff with it. So you have to have like 4 quarters for a dollar. You need money to buy your house, like food, water, oxygen, not oxygen.
Money is basically just an accounting system. It is a way of reporting who owns what, who has what, who owes what to whom. That is all money really is. And you needed somebody who could stand as the central issuer, somebody who was the trusted third party, someone who guaranteed that the money was real. But for hundreds of years now, we have had governments issue money. Again, money is just an accounting system. That's what Bitcoin is. Bitcoin is really just an accounting system. It is a way of reporting transactions.
This picture, truly one of the most unusual of the film, contains scenes which under no circumstances should be viewed by anyone with a heart condition or anyone who is easily upset. We urgently recommend that if you are such a person or the parent of a young or impressionable child now in attendance, that you and the child leave the auditorium.
Yeah. It's been just one thing. Some say it will, some say it won't. Now you see it, now you don't. We spent all the money on a disaster movie. It makes me want to sing.
Rome was the largest and most beautiful city of the ancient world. The magnificent facade of the empire, however, could not conceal the seeds of decay. The unhealthy dependence of the economy on slaves, the disparity between rich and poor. Behind the splendor of the Forum were vast areas of crowded slums. Escape from the slums was difficult, for there were few jobs available, practically none for the unskilled. To keep idle citizens entertained and out of mischief, frequent games and spectacles were held at public expense. At first, only chariot races were sponsored, but by the reign of Trajan, brutal combat to the death had become popular. Earlier in Rome's history, elected representatives exercised the power, but by now every function of government had been absorbed by the emperor, who was above the law and ruled by decree. That a people as civilized as the Romans, with the most humane system of law ever devised, would tolerate the violation of human beings is astonishing. This imbalance and the irresponsible behavior of public officials would become major reasons for Rome's eventual decline.
I wonder how future civilizations will view our society. Will they judge us by this? Or will they judge us by this?
Make sure I'm wrong inside the house here. You're home more than good. We're not going to say this, but we'll have to come in the house. So,
But you're watching right here.
Yeah, we know.
Okay.
All right. All right.
We cannot act like this is just something that's okay. And so this is new. They've never come out and boarded up a house after they evicted the person and threw their furniture in the dumpster. So they letting us know that they are stepping it up, boarding up somebody's house.
That's been my family home. It's my parents' house. So I've lived here for 41 years. It's the only home I ever really lived in. It's always be home to me, no matter what.
oh, I'm a carpenter.
There you go. There you go. That's what his office is.
That's all I am. You know, people pay their bills, they don't have money.
Well, you pay the bills, you got it.
That's right. So what do you think I'm doing? I don't have to be happy about this, but right.
Well, that's all I'm saying is that, you know, maybe you can make another choice. That's all we're saying.
There's no reason for
You are a working class person. The problem
people
is
to
here.
get upset and almost get themselves hurt.
But we ain't gonna get hurt. And we're not gonna get hurt. Are you threatening us? Y'all gonna get them out of here. We might end up even getting hurt. Come on, us getting hurt. You
There's got to be some kind of a rebellion between the people that have nothing and the people that's got it all. I don't understand. There's no in between no more. There's the people that's got it all and the people that have nothing.
Gotta get the stuff out of the house and packed up and be out of here in about 30 days, even though we don't have a place to go.
We designed this house. The property that it's on was my family farm. So I've lost a piece of my heritage with this. Why do you do this to the hardworking people? Why do you take everything? You take everything away from them. We're just middle-class, hardworking people trying to make a living. Just trying to survive.
Dad's pistol. My pistol.
Sheriff's Department, we're supposed to be 30 days. I got 30 days to get my stuff out. That's what the guy told me. What?
Today.
The paper's telling us that we're due to do an eviction here today at 9 a.m. Well, he's surprised too.
The house is gone. That Tom told me this. The house has already been sold to somebody else. So we don't own the house anymore. Somebody else does.
This is capitalism, a system of taking and giving, mostly taking. The only thing we didn't know was when the revolt began.
Everything. We've tried everything. Except robbing a bank. I think about maybe doing that. You know, that's one way somebody could get their money back. And they did it. They did it to me. I don't know why I can't do it to them.
This is my second Hyundai Sonata. And I'll probably get a new car next year. When I do, it'll probably be another Sonata. You know, I'm not a car guy. If I can go in there and steal a condo for the equivalent of what a Mercedes would cost or a Bentley would cost, I'm all about that.
Meet Peter Zalewski, Florida's up-and-coming real estate whiz.
Joe?
He calls his real estate company Condo Vultures.
We have a very good sense of the final notice of eviction. So you can see this person was basically thrown out by the police department. Welcome.
Peter deals exclusively with clients who buy up foreclosed homes and then resell them at a profit.
It's going to be about 830 square feet or so. At the end of the day, the only people who are buying are primarily individuals that we represent. It's on the market for $66,000, which are basically bottom feeders who are going in there. They have no compassion, no sensitivity. They're running purely off numbers. They're coming in all cash, and they're looking to slit any single seller's throat, regardless of what their situation is. People always ask, what's 25 cents on the dollar? This is it. This is what you're going to get. The vulture basically represents a bottom feeder that goes in there and cleans off a carcass. Because they're dealing with so many different germs and so many different situations, they'll have to vomit on themselves, and there's some sort of cleansing process that occurs. The vultures aren't actually killing. They're the ones doing the cleanup. Which make you want to make America? What we do is we tap into data, and boom, voila. Here we got 3,400 foreclosures by Bank of America. Gotta love it. As we collect data, it's giving us the insight into the battlefield. Almost like a drone flies over the battleground in Afghanistan.
or in Pakistan, or in Iraq.
The current gas price is $3.55. Again, it was purchased for $8.40. A little bit of a discount.
So now people are using that data to be able to go in and try to steal properties legally and ethically, but take them at the bare bottom price. It's all about taking right now.
Look at the roof, completely gone and missing. We haven't had a hurricane in 5 years. Welcome to the housing crash, Miami style.
So this is what capitalism is, and this is why the information is so critical. We go in there, we alert them to it, and if they like it, boom.
With the window, look at that. Looks like the house next door was on fire.
This is straight up capitalism.
Fire damage.
Everybody's got this desire to go in there and take advantage of others' misfortunes. Somebody asked me, what's the difference between you and a real vulture? It's very simple. I don't vomit on myself.
Our topic today, what is capitalism?
Capitalism? Well, why should there be any question about it? Hasn't it given us the highest standard of living in the world?
We're free to try to make a profit, to just get by, or to fail.
Well, that's what capitalism is. A system of free enterprise. Well, now tell us what free enterprise means.
I went to see my friend Wally Shaw, a playwright and sometimes actor.
Inconceivable!
But Wally also studied history and politics, and even a little elementary economics.
Free enterprise is a form of words that is intended to conjure up in your mind a little town with different shops. And the guy who runs the best shop has the most customers.
There is the basis of the capitalistic system, the profit motive. He's in business to make money.
The original theory of capitalism is that it's a very clever way of society voting on what goods it wants made. That's what do you use this for? I could use that for practically everything I ever do. Society votes. They like the way this guy makes ice cream, but the other guy, they don't like his ice cream that much. They don't buy it, so it fades out. The basic law of life is that if you have things, you can easily get more things. Very quickly, one guy can have 5 times more than anybody else.
Free enterprise,
Competition.
the profit motive.
My dad, an assembly line worker at General Motors, bought and paid for our house before he graduated from kindergarten. We had a new car every 3 years. We went to New York every other summer. That's me on Wall Street. That's me directing my first movie at the World's Fair. We went to Catholic schools. We lived a good life. This was capitalism. I loved it. And so did everyone else. During these years, a lot of people got rich, and they had to pay a top tax rate of 90%. 90%? Yep. But they still got to live like Bogey and Bacall. And what did we do with all their money? We built dams, bridges, interstate highways, schools, hospitals. We even sent a guy to the moon. Things seemed to be going in the right direction. Dad had a secure job, and Mom could work if she wanted, but didn't have to. Middle-class families only needed one income to survive. Our union family had free health care and free dental. The kids could go to college without getting a loan from a bank. Dad had 4 weeks paid vacation every summer. Most people had a savings account, little debt. And Dad's pension was set aside where no one could touch it. It would be there for him when he retired. We got all of this because our main industrial competition had been reduced to rough. Here's what the German car industry looked like. And here's the Japanese auto industry. I guess you could say it's easy to be number one when you have no competition. Yes, of course, not everything was perfect. We didn't mind having to put up with a little bit of this and a little bit of that.
Just as long as we could be middle class. And we could count on our kids having it better than we had it. It sounded like a good deal to us. Capitalism. No one ever had it so good. And then, right when we were in the middle of this big love affair with capitalism,
the ABC Sunday night movie, The Gambler, will continue in its entirety following this live report from ABC News.
We are at a turning point in our history.
along came Debbie Downer.
Too many of us now tend to worship self-indulgence and consumption. Human identity is no longer defined by what one does, but by what one owns. This is not a message of happiness or reassurance, but it is the truth, and it is a warning.
Wow, what a bummer. It was time to bring a new sheriff to town. One who knew how to act like a president. He knew how to handle workers who wanted a better wage.
All right, mister. I guess you win.
Or these annoying feminists whining about their equal rights amendment.
Well, I can change that in a hurry.
A man who knew how to get the job done. Ronald Reagan came out of the B movies to become the most famous corporate spokesman of the 1950s.
Here's a transistor radio, too. Weighs only a few ounces. Slip it right into your pocket. Rexo waterless hand cleaner really cleans up for us.
He had found his calling, and Wall Street had found their man. You see, the banks and corporations had a simple plan: to remake America to serve them. But to pull it off would require electing a spokesmodel for president. And on November 4th, 1980, that's what we did.
That I will faithfully execute the office of President of the United States.